This conference will now be recorded.
That's doesn't explain that one, right?
I hope.
Two of them.
What is the meeting ID? Are you posting it, or how, are we gonna upload it ourselves, or is it being shared from the main screen?
No, if they log into the go-to meeting, they can see it.
Okay, I wasn't sure for this one if it was broadcast through.
Oh, no, you can sign in on that one.
Okay, that's, yep.
It's on the bottom of your agenda will be the number.
Yep.
And don't turn the volume on, please.
That's something you could bring up at the town board. Different. Yeah, it's a. Then 7:30, yeah. At 7:30, we have a quorum. I will call the meeting to order. First item of business will be allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item of business is the approved minutes, meeting minutes. First one would be the Board of Canvas meeting on Tuesday, March 9th. Any discussion, questions, concerns, additions? If not, entertain a motion to accept.
Make a motion to accept the 21 Board of Canvas meeting minutes.
Second that.
Motion been made and seconded to accept the March 9th Board of Canvas minutes. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. The March 23rd monthly meeting.
I would move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there no other second? Is there any further discussion?
I did have one question. So on the agenda, you have new business result conflict, airport planning commission liaison. Is that going to be, because that's attached to the minutes? Is there going to be discussion on that page?
Well, if we approve that on that meeting, so now we'd have to adjust it on this meeting if we're going to.
Well, I'm just wondering what that's for as well.
The meetings are the same night.
Oh, okay, all right, so I wanted to make sure that we
We'll
were,
have to reappoint somebody to, but the minutes have to stand.
Okay.
As are. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the March 23rd monthly meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Moving on to the special board meeting on Tuesday, April 6th. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to, on page 6, second to the bottom paragraph. Some of these were pulled together by myself. I should have included Todd McCloud's name, his last name in there. It says sorry. I should have-
Okay, exactly where?
Page 6, second from the bottom paragraph, it says, after I read those minutes at the very end, it says I had with,
Oh, okay.
I had with Todd, yeah, just for clarity,
Okay.
that's all I had.
Make sure you accept that without amendment. Is there a motion to accept these minutes with that addition?
I would move to accept.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the township special meeting for April 6th with the approval or with the addition of Todd McCluskey's name and page 6 paragraph, second to the bottom. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. We will now have an open forum.
There's nobody else. I can take a couple of minutes to talk about the zoning and plat requests. My name is Dave Keppel. I purchased the property back in December. I'm not a developer. I'm not looking to break it out and make a quick buck. My wife and I grew up here. Our family is here. We're just with a couple of small children moving back to get closer to family. We intend to put our house, right in the middle of the 26-acre section. We're creating a 2.5 acre section for my father and mother-in-law to, build their retirement home on, and then just looking to sell the existing home that's there. So that's really our only plan. I kind of want to, make mention of the plat request. So as a part of that, there's a contingency that I need to sacrifice a 1/2 acre on the north side for a potential road. I don't see any justification for that. I mean, there's no master plan, no ratified vision suggesting that needs to be done. It was just cobbled together in an ad hoc, one at a time piecemeal section. It's completely arbitrary. My lot or my plat in no way requires an additional road. It's been clearly stated there's no development plans that would justify that in the near future. So it's just completely unnecessary. I mean, it's landlocked at the moment. And to the right, there's a lot too small to plat. So eventually, if you want to go through there, you're going to have to go through eminent domain. And there's just no public value in taking this piece of land. In addition, I think you guys are all aware of the zoning mix-up scenario. That caused me significant time and money. I mean, before engaging the surveyor, we reached out to Scott, said, here's what we're going to do, any problems. And I poured significant money into that because of this mistake. And even in best case scenario, if this gets rezoned, I've still lost the money that I paid additionally to have it subdivided to administratively so that I can get that house on the market. Because frankly, I need to sell that before I can build my house, So I've lost that. I lose a month to build the house. I mean, I've just gone through considerable hardship as a result of this. And I would request that you guys waive the platting fees. I think would be a small gesture that would go a long way towards making me whole in this situation, just because of the money and time that was wasted because of this wrong information. I mean, some people have said, well, it's on your tax statement. You should have seen it, buried in the deed. Well, guess what? I went to the people who I thought were the authorities long before I even put an offer in. So I checked, I rechecked, I felt I did my due diligence. I wasn't digging in paperwork trying to catch you guys on a mistake. So that's kind of my, where I'm at. Thanks.
Anybody else wish to speak about the forum? Everybody online? There's nobody online and there's nobody else wish to speak. We will close open forum. We'll move on to the clerk treasurer report. Start with the cash control statements.
Thank you very much. just quickly on the fund balances, the general fund beginning balance, 85,098.80, receipts of 22,346.16, disbursements of 30,583.86, for an ending balance of 76,861.10. And then the road and bridge beginning balance, 232,634.77, receipts of $51.50. Disbursements of $1,375, an ending balance of $231,311.27. Now, the more astute among you would probably notice that the beginning balances for the general fund and the road and bridge fund do not match the ending balances from last month. The reason for that is we reviewed the tax allocations from 2020 from the county and discovered that but all of the tax allocation, a couple cases have been put in the general fund instead of being split between general fund and road and bridge. So that totaled $70,570 that should have been allocated to road and bridge, but went into general fund. So we made that correction, and that's why the general fund number is down by that amount and the road and bridge is up by that amount as beginning balances.
When did that happen?
When it was done in March, like March 1st.
Yeah, not sure if it came up as a result of the audit. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so. I think it did. Yeah, it came up in the audit and we said, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, let's fix that. So.
But just in addition to the general fund balance, we still have 106,000.
108.
In the reserve, was 108,000.
In the investment, yeah. Okay.
And there's a question about, I think it was on the cash control, it says we have 25,000 outstanding.
Check.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because it's really late in the month when they went out. I mean, our meeting was very late. So a lot of those are in now, but they just weren't in by the end of the month.
And you want to ask about the Richard Ryman? Wasn't that supposed to be 5,000?
Pardon me?
Wasn't the Richard Ryman escrow supposed to be 5,000? Why'd that drop $500?
Charges against it.
Okay.
I don't know what the charges would be. What charges are against it, or?
I have to
Okay.
look it up. I mean, I can, if you want, I can go look it up and see what it was.
We don't have to be right now.
But it would have come through on an invoice from one of the township. I don't know if it was zoning or if it was probably zoning or engineering. When they invoice them that way, then I take it out of the escrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we take them all at once or individually? And control statement, March payroll, claims.
I prefer if you do each month,
To do what?
do the 3 items individually, if you don't mind.
Okay, any discussion on cash control statements?
I would move to approve.
Motion's made to approve the cash control statement. Here a second.
I'd second that.
Is there any discussion? The motion has been made and seconded to approve the cash control statement. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. We will move on to March payroll.
Fairly simple, net payroll, 4,382.08. You have the readout there. 4,382.08. 4,382.08. You have the readout there. 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 4,382.08. You have
And I believe would have been for a large portion of that was for the election and planning commission and town board.
No, not the election. There was no election judges in that payroll. They were paid separately as a payroll last month.
Okay.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any election judges on that.
Okay, it was the planning commission that I was looking at.
No, you do. You got the,
One of them had,
Does it?
yeah, you're. You got
because it should have been the March payroll, or March.
You got elected judge for Halverson and Henson.
Oh, okay. That's my mistake then. Yeah, it was a separate payroll, but it was paid in March as well. So yeah, that was my mistake. Yes. Those are March. Those are both March.
Any further discussion? If not, I entertain a motion to accept March payroll.
I would move that motion.
Mr. Dugan, let's make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Miller seconds motion. Is there any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded to approve March payroll. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Next is claims for approval.
Okay, claims are fairly routine. I will point out that the Kennedy and Graven bill, fairly large, that covers 2 months. We didn't get a bill from them last month. And then we have the property tax, which was $4.40 times 3 plus 26 cents.
Any discussion on claims for approval?
I got a question. Mike Nelson Auto Glass, was that the windshield in the Massey?
There was,
No, in the, what?
in the, whatever that, in
In the pickup truck?
the one that's shattered.
Oh,
The tractor.
What was the date on that?
Oh,
Oh, did he just send it in?
It just hit today.
Oh, I was gonna say, it was quick.
Yeah,
I did it yesterday or 2 days ago.
it was, I decided, I tried to cut it off yesterday, but that didn't work. So
Okay, and then Ziegler's, obviously, we bought a screen to protect that windshield now, so we're not gonna.
No, because that was the front windshield.
Yeah.
Not the rear. The rear, talking with the guy who does our government sales and all these, we looked at a Lexan glass. And he says the problem with the Lexan glasses is over time, they discolor and you can't see out of them.
Okay.
So right now, we just put the regular standard glass window in, and we had to make 2 trips to actually get the windshield on that. Because the first windshield was wrong. Hooked up the windshield again, we had to get the version made for China because the standard US windshield does not fit that one. So then you look right at the serial number tag, it says made in China right on the tractor. So the Ziegler guys were struggling trying to find it. They actually had to call AGCO to figure out what windshield to get for it. So
those will be submitted to insurance.
Okay. And then the last one is Dahlhammer Trucking for road repair on 105th. Is that what we're discussing later on tonight?
Portion of it, part of it.
Why is that the township's expense if they're destroying a road? Why are we paying anything for the farmers going out and wrecking the road? That's not our expense. I won't sign that.
Kind of hard to assess blame on a gravel road.
Well, if tractors going in and out of the field, yeah, it's pretty easy to. I mean, if I go out and I wreck my road, I mean, I'm held liable for it. If I go out and I wreck government property, I'm held liable for it.
We can certainly send the bill.
Thomas, you were out there looking at,
Was that?
we can discuss that. It'll be part of the discussion here later.
Okay, if you wish to table this until after the discussion on the road report, we can move on. Clean up the update, any other than just beekeeper and
We have not had a motion on the claim.
I motion to table until we discuss it later.
I'll second that motion. We will table it after the road report. Motion has been made and seconded to table the claims for approval until after the road report. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote to the table the motion on the claims for approval until after the road report. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now we'll move to the cleanup update.
Basically just finding out if everybody's going to be on deck, ready to go Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. We have,
I'm gonna be absent that day.
so we won't have your skid loader.
I can bring one if you need.
Well, that was brought up about with the track, with the tires. Someone evidently is planning to bring some big tires. So he was asking if we had a skid loader available.
It'll be a good loader, either his or mine.
Okay. Yeah, and then, so that, yeah, that's the main thing. Having the recycle dumpster moved to the other end of the parking lot and make room for everything, but all of the vehicles will be delivered on Friday, be in place, and we should be ready to rock and roll. We just need people to help outside, plus we'll have the table set up, and I've discovered we need to be very conscientious about receipts, which we were last year, by the way. So we got covered on that. So we want to make sure that everything gets properly documented. And everybody did a good job on that last year, so that was very helpful.
Do we have a head count of who's gonna be helping out?
I don't.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Carol and I'll help inside.
Good.
So we gotta at least 15 too. So we got at least 6.
All right. Should be good. Yeah, one of the things that on the vendors asked for was to make sure we had enough people to count appliances going in. Make sure that we get a good count on those.
Anything else with cleanup day? Most people got their newsletters, so they should have seen what the cleanup date is and also the newsletter report. Anything else on newsletter report?
Very simple. We just, what do we end up at? 870, around 874, something like that. By the time we pared down the list and removed the duplicates and everything, Andrea did a whale of a job on that. It spent hours on it, going through that list. We had an uncooperative label template. I think you've seen that before. You put in one item and then it copies it all the way through, and you say, no, we don't try to think for me. We want to do this ourselves. But she fought her way all the way through that. We got them out. So appreciate that.
Anything else with newsletter report? Nope. If not, we will proceed with the audit report.
Okay.
It's okay if I take that down?
Yeah, please.
A lot easier to talk that way. Hello,
Got you up there, John.
perfect, excellent. Just as an introduction, my name is John Archer, partner at Schlenner Winery and Company. I was telling Doug earlier, the audit was done remotely this year because of COVID. And one of the drawbacks to doing an audit remotely is we're not face to face with your folks. And so this is actually my first time meeting Doug actually face to face. So it's nice to be able to be here in person, talk with you all. And we're going to go through your audit results. What I've done is I've basically taken your audit reports, condensed them down into this PowerPoint summary. We're going to start out by talking about how the audit went, and then we're going to do a pretty high flyby on how your numbers came in for the year. And if you have any questions, we can kind of drill down from there. Sound good? Okay, so we're going to dig in first and talk a little bit about the audit process and the opinion that we're giving. So our audit is very similar to really any other audit that you might have received in the past because all firms follow the same auditing procedure. So generally speaking, we do some analytical procedures. So we compare your numbers to what we'd expect them to be at. We ask a lot of questions on transactions. We do a deeper dive into actual detailed testing of transactions. So that's when we're going in, we're looking at your bank statements, at your invoices, at your property tax receipts, the actual physical proof. And the whole purpose of all that is that we're trying to basically prove that the numbers in your audit report and your financial statements are correct. And so at the end of that process, after we've asked those questions, done those analytical procedures, looked at those source documents, we give an opinion on your financial statements. And so the opinion that we're giving is called an unmodified opinion, which is basically like a clean opinion, us saying that based on those procedures we performed, we think your numbers look good. The opinion that we're giving is under what's called the regulatory basis of accounting or cash basis of accounting, which is a allowable method that a smaller township has. It's basically cash coming in, cash going out. And so we don't record things like your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, the value of your infrastructure. If you had long-term debt, that would have been recorded under this other basis. So that's all not recorded. Like I said, it's like you keep your personal checkbook, cash coming in and cash going out. Okay. And overall, even with being in a remote environment and a first-year audit, which is generally more work than a recurring audit went really smoothly. And so your folks were really good to work with. They were quick to answer questions when we had them, quick to upload information to our portal when we asked for it, and really very, very well prepared for the audit. We had a good working relationship with them. We didn't see any unusual transactions during our audit process. And being a first-year audit, we took a deeper dive into a number of transactions, including the coding on those transactions, the cutoff on those transactions, looking at with an extra emphasis on transactions, both at the end of the year, but also at the beginning of the year, just looking at things, making sure that they really are recorded the way they should be. Didn't have any issues with that. And along with that process, we didn't actually propose any adjustments to your financial statements that would be considered material. So there were a few minor adjustments that were proposed, nothing that would have meant that your financials were materially misstated. Doug mentioned earlier the property tax adjustment, actually identified by your folks, not by us going into the audit, and so not considered an audit adjustment in your report. In terms of internal controls and compliance, we're reporting 2 internal control findings. In the world of internal controls, there's a hierarchy. And so at the very highest level, we have what's called a material weakness, which means that because of this control deficiency, there's a chance that your financial statements could be materially misstated. From there, we go down to what's called a significant deficiency, which is a control weakness that is less in scope than material, but if a problem were to occur, it likely wouldn't be material. And then at the low end is a control deficiency, which is more of a recommendation. So we have 2 internal control recommendations or findings. One is related to segregation of duties, which I believe you've seen for a few years here because you have a small staff at the township. It's inherent in your operations. And so that's actually considered a material weakness because you don't have your duties separated out enough to really mitigate the risk that's inherent in that. But what you do as a township board, and I was watching you earlier in your meeting, scrutinizing the bills, looking at the payroll, looking at the cash sheets, that's all really good because that does mitigate that risk of segregation of duties. So I was really happy to see the level of detail that you were going into when you were going through those documents. The other internal control item that we report is not material, but downgraded to significant deficiency, that we draft your financial statements for you. And so when we draft your financials, including all the footnote disclosures, we're required to report that if you're not preparing that internally. As another part of the audit, we take a look at compliance with Minnesota statutes. And we go through a guide that the state auditor publishes each year, and they update it for different things that they want us to look at. We did have one legal compliance finding this past year related to electronic fund transfer policy, which you've actually already adopted, so you're good to go for 2021 now. Other things that we recommended during the audit related to escrow activity. When we were going through the audit, we noticed that you had dispersed some dollars from escrow funds before you had actually collected the dollars from developers or the deposits. So our recommendation is to make sure you have those receipts before you make the disbursements. Okay, we're going to do a high level look at your financials now, starting with the general fund. And so if we look at this page, and this is very broad, we're looking at the general fund receipts, disbursements, and then the change in your cash balance. So, and it's compared to both 2019 and to the budget. So looking at 2020 first, 2020 receipts came in actually significantly higher than what you budgeted at 314,000 versus 206 that you budgeted. Disbursements also came in higher than what you budgeted at 320,000. Overall, you spent down that cash balance by $6,600, where you planned on a spend down of 17,000, and cash at the end of the year in the general fund's 208,000. If we look at the next page, we're going to look at a little more detail on your cash receipts. And your township is very similar to most townships in that your general fund receipts are consist mostly of property tax collections. And your budgeting for your property tax collections was very accurate compared to how the collections actually were. So that's really good to see because your primary source of revenue in the general fund, you want your budgeting to be pretty accurate. Biggest variances we're looking at compared to budget, I mentioned that receipts came in quite a bit higher, mostly related to license fees and other service charges. That's mostly building permits. So you had significantly higher building permit collections than what you had budgeted for, and that's what we're looking at on this page. So that line item came in at 103,000 where you budgeted 27. Intergovernmental is a line item that you actually didn't have any dollars budgeted. That includes market value credit, along with some other really minor state aids that you've received. And then miscellaneous, which is a term that us accountants don't generally really like, but that's what it's called on this page. That came in quite a bit higher than budget, mostly because of your, I think it was plow trucks, a couple of plow trucks that you sold during the year. That's where the dollars from those, the proceeds from those sales came in.
You guys don't use the miscellaneous category?
We don't like miscellaneous. Everything should really have a home.
Miscellaneous.
Yeah, everything should have a home, but the state gives us only certain categories we can follow, so miscellaneous it is. Looking at the spending here next. Spending, like I said, spending was higher than budget as well. The theme here is development, and so we've got zoning costs, admin costs, and then some legal and professional fees included in that general government category, which really raised your spending compared to what you planned on. So general government, like I said, the spending came in at 223,000 versus a budget of 156,000. Public safety is another line that actually is down quite a bit from last year and relatively close, a little bit higher than budget. If you remember back to 2019, you'll remember that you made a contribution to the city of Princeton for a fire truck purchase. And so that's really the large swing from 19 to 20 there. Otherwise, the remaining spending is pretty small. Capital outlay is an item that you budgeted $500, but it came in at 17,000. a chunk of that $17,000 is a vehicle that you purchased. Okay.
That was a pretty big chunk. That was what, 12,000?
Yeah, it was the most of it. There's only two years of trend on this page, and as we work with you, we'll build this out a little bit further. But looking at the size of your fund balance relative to the size of your township, works out to be about 93% of a year's budgeted expenses sitting in cash balance. So a healthy cash balance. That's a good cash balance in the general fund. It looks a lot. The spend down looks a lot greater than it actually is because of the scale here. You went from 105% to 93%. And in terms of cash, cash at the end of the year in the general fund came in at 208,000. Again, the scale makes it look like a pretty significant spend down. Reality, you went from 214 to 208. When I was in school, I think I had a math teacher that said you can make any chart look exactly how you want it to be by adjusting the scale, and so that's kind of what we were looking at there. Looking at your remaining governmental funds, we've got Road and Bridge up first. Road and Bridge had a pretty sizable spend down in cash balance, $307,000. Most of that just related to your road projects that you have going on. So the 33rd Street project and the 82nd Avenue project. The receipts coming in of $274,000 are mostly tax levy. You had a donation coming from the city of Princeton and some gas tax dollars coming in from the county. And in terms of spending, most of the spending is street construction costs.
Does that get entered in as a donation? When the city does this?
It's their share.
We donate more?
Yeah.
It was their share.
Oh, yeah, it's their share. Donation sounds. Escrow Activity, you had 113,000 coming in, 41 of disbursements going out. Overall, you had an increase in cash in that fund of 71,000.
Does that include our park dedication?
That's actually in the next column over. So the dedication fee, $26,000 of dedication fees coming in with no disbursements. And so that fund had a pretty sizable increase in cash balance and 40,000 in cash at the end of the year. And then the new fund this year, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, 56,000 of dollars coming in, 56,000 going out because you had to spend it all in that time frame. Zero cash balance at the end of the year.
Does that go into our audit as we spent the entire amount, or does it go for what we actually purchased and then the other portion that we had to return?
The portion that gets returned is considered you spending it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just bet it.
Yeah, we gross it all up.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of cash balances in these funds, and this, again, it's just 2 years here, but we'll build that trend out a little bit as we're working with you. Cash balance in the Road and Bridge Fund is 216,000. Escrows increased like we saw on the last page, 91,000 there. And then the non-major funds, which is the escrow and the park dedication, or the park dedication, $40,000 sitting in there at the end of the year.
So quick question.
Yeah.
Obviously you do some of these townships for their budgeting and
Yep.
analytical. Do you see a township of our size in general have a cash balance of that sitting on hand before we started doing the roads and bridges?
Yeah, it's actually fairly common to see townships, we'll say self-fund these projects and not borrow for them. I would say most of the time we actually do see that. We see very little borrowing in townships. So I know that was very high level with the numbers. Any questions at all on the audit process, on the numbers that we went through?
Have we ever had anybody present the audit like this? I've never.
Never.
I haven't.
We've gotten a printout like this. And
Yeah.
then it's been up to board members to review it or whatever. Then it's just been we approve it, but no, we've never had enough.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Got me out of my house a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll move on to zoning administrator's report.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have the request for, it's two separate items on the agenda. The request to rezone the properties at 2601 65th Avenue from AC Ag Conservation to rural residential. And then the request by David Keppel for preliminary plat referred to as Keppel Edition, again at that 2601 65th Avenue. The town board is aware of the situation with this. We've discussed this at previous meetings. In fact, you authorized the planning commission to go forward with a public hearing on the rezoning this evening. They had already received, planning commission had already received the application for the preliminary plat. As you're aware, we had a mapping error in 2019 where the zoning map was incorrect from what had been rezoned in 2015. Mr. Keppel has requested his property be rezoned back to rural residential so he can proceed with this subdivision. The ordinance for rezoning would require a 4/5 vote. The subdivision is just a simple majority. Planning Commission had recommended both the rezoning and the preliminary plat earlier this evening at their meeting. Just a little background. Again, the comprehensive plan for this area does show it as rural residential. That's an action that you took last fall. So the rezoning would be consistent with that rural residential land use classification. The Keppel Edition that it's referred to is a 3-lot subdivision on 35 acres. There's also an administrative plat that he's requesting to take off a piece of property that already has a house on it. So essentially, there is 1 lot now, but 4 lots would be created with this, but just 3 lots with the preliminary plat. All the setbacks meet the requirements, easements meet the requirements. Park dedication fee for the 3 new lots would be $3,600. Access, probably one of the more discussed points by the Planning Commission was something the township engineer had suggested, and this should all be within your packet. On the north piece of the property, so here's 65th running through here, north piece of the property, we're asking for 33 feet of an easement area, just as an easement for future roadway purposes. Todd McLeod had put together a future potential roadway map in this area. You can see his diagram that was in your packet. It goes from 65th at the north piece of this property to connect with the road in front of the Moonshine Bar and Grill. We don't have an official proposed roadway map in this township, but it is a suggestion that the township engineer has requested. As you heard earlier, Mr. Keppel was objecting to that. We would take the easement, so obviously along 65th as part of the administrative plat for these areas. Todd McLeod, the township engineer, has made his recommendations, and those conditions are made a part of this approval. The Planning Commission recommended the rezoning with no conditions. Typically, you don't put a condition on rezoning. And then the preliminary plat, they added a condition that the unnamed stream driveways and culverts shall be subject to approval, review and approval of the Mille Lacs County and the town engineer. So again, that's just kind of a quick broad base. Again, there's 2 actions. I kind of combine them all into one report, but there is the rezoning and then action on the preliminary plat. It'd be the first reading of the ordinance if you decide to move forward with that rezoning. Tonight, you do second reading at your May 18th meeting. And then again, the subdivision is a 2-step process with the preliminary plat. With your action tonight, that moves forward. It would go to the town board meeting on May 18th for a final plat.
If we really can't do the preliminary plat approval before the second reading, right?
What I suggested, and I've done this in a number of jurisdictions, there's a condition on the approval of the preliminary plat that's subject to approval of the rezoning. So just to keep the action moving here, if, for instance, you decided to not move forward with the final plat or not approve the second reading of the rezoning, then the preliminary plat isn't valid. So that it's covered in condition 1 of that approval.
So our first action would be to deal with ordinance number 2021-3. Ordinance rezoning 2601 65th Avenue, 2635 65th Avenue from ag conservation to rural residential, right?
Yes, and that's correct. And something I didn't mention, this is not only the Keppel property, but also the McDill property. So it's, and those two property descriptions are listed here. It's 2601 65th and 2735 65th Avenue, both PID numbers, in that the area around this property to the north, to the east, and to the south is already zoned rural residential. It isn't a spot zone. It's just extending out that rural residential property to the west.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-3? Would be a resolution.
Oh, it would be the ordinance first.
Okay. This is
The ordinance goes first, right? The rezoning.
And if you're looking at
What is-
what's on the plate or page in front of you right now is the ordinance as it reads, including the planning commission analysis. There's public hearing tonight, approved or recommended approval. Lists the 2 parcels. And it's basically, this is the first reading, would be effective tonight. Is there a motion to, okay,
I would move the motion to pass first reading to change from ag conservation to rural residential.
motion has been made. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve first reading of the ordinance number 2021-3, rezone from ag conservation to rural residential. PIDs 800 and 600. Make it simpler. Is there any further discussion?
I understand there was a mix-up in our zoning map is why we're looking at this. And I just hope you guys know that we're opening the door, that there's other people that have land real close to the residential area that's going to be coming in and asking to get it rezoned. So I personally think this makes sense. There's other parcels in the ag conservation area that I don't think should be in there, but we are opening the door, so.
Well, and there was a comment earlier, I was at the earlier meeting, that this has always been ag. And as far as I can see, I mean, when I was first handed my ordinance book, the map here, anything south of 1 and south of 122, that was zoned rural residential back in 2005, and who knows how far long before that. So just so people understand, this has not always been ag. It's only been ag since 2015, and it's only what was shown on this. That's map's not correct on the wall there.
Yeah, that's correct.
So what was shown earlier.
The action, if I can interrupt, the action that was taken in 2015 was not very clearly defined.
I think that's, and then I believe that's why the mapping error became in 2019.
The motion that was made is completely different than what the resolution was, which creates some issue about the legitimacy of the rezoning.
And then there was a map that was not correct also that accompanied the ordinance. So we did clean up, if you remember right, a couple of meetings ago, last month, you cleaned up the zoning map, with the errors in 2019. And now, because Mr. Keppel is still ag conservation, you're rezoning to rural residential.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to rezone properties PID 600 and 800? from AC to rural residential.
So again, but just for clarification, this has only been an ag since 2015.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote by roll call. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Stokel is aye. Mr. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion is carried. This will be reread on May 18th for the final approval. Next item is a request by David Keppel for a preliminary plat. And it will be a contingent upon the fact that we continue to do the conservation for rural residential. We look. Okay. You would now be looking at resolution number 2021-10.
And again, the planning commission had recommended with that number 10 related to the culvert within the property, subject to approval of the county and the town engineer.
Is this still gonna cover where he was discussing the 33-foot easement on the north property line?
It's a good point. So following the recommendation of the town engineer, number 3 says the township shall require the applicant to dedicate 33 feet of right of way on the north property line. So again, whoever makes the motion, if you're okay with that, then keep them, that condition in. If you're not okay with it, you would take that condition out.
I'm just looking at that. I mean, with the township's engineer's recommendation, these cul-de-sac roads are a hell of a lot longer than 1,400 foot. I mean,
I think those are just connections he's circling. I don't think they're cul-de-sacs.
No, he's just circling the connections,
okay.
yeah. And also there's a dashed line.
I was just looking at that.
There's a dashed line that Todd had put in there that kind of runs through this particular subdivision. Oh, I discussed that with Todd, and we felt that the northern route made a lot more sense than that southern connection. So
This is something that we have done on an every time basis, any land split in the last 8 years. Probably because if there is a road developed in the future, we already have the easement. If it's never developed, it's never a problem. The landowner can basically do whatever they want with it unless it becomes a necessary road. And we will probably grant a discussion between township engineer and Scott, and Mr. Keppel on moving forward before we do the final plat. Is that all right?
yes.
I do have a question though on this property, we're talking, looks like maybe 600 feet, 33 feet wide. What about the property to the east? We don't have any easement here from that property.
We don't have any easement from there, and we really wouldn't get that until we built the road, or if they take some action that requires town board approval. So we can't force it upon them if, there's no action we
Is
take.
this a section line or what is this line, is north boundary line?
I think that is the section, isn't it?
Look. No, the section line is at 122nd.
So it's actually the north half of the northeast quarter. Okay.
Yeah.
And just so you're aware, I'm not seeing that 33 foot easement isn't shown on any of my layouts.
It's not shown on the preliminary plat,
Oh, okay.
but it is a condition that'll be added.
I guess I kind of happen to agree with Mr. Keppel. I don't know that that's what's necessary.
I know we have that 35 foot setback. So if we ever want to do a 33 foot easement, that setback, there's not going to be any buildings built there.
And we'd still have to do the eminent domain if we were gonna put a road through there, but I mean, for something that may or may not happen in the next 25 years, I don't know if that's really necessary to do at this point in time, in my opinion.
And if you have the easement, you wouldn't have to do an eminent domain. You already.
Yeah, but if we have the easement, then we're taking 33 feet of it, which, I mean, it's already done. Yeah, I don't,
According to law,
Yeah.
according to, I know Mr. Gupple said it, he said a different law, but we had to deal with this a couple of years ago. And
well, if you have
an
30,
easement's not considered a take.
yeah, but it also restricts that he can do absolutely nothing in that 33 foot.
Not unless he can anyway, until we
Correct,
need it.
that's already, that's where I saw it, because he's got his 35 foot setback, but he's technically can't build anything in.
Standard practices to, I mean, this is, I know anytime you're dealing with roads, I mean, it's cheaper today than it is in 25 years. And
Correct.
that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, Todd is making the point very clear to me that whenever we're doing anything like this, that we make sure that we take the easements that we require now, rather than wait down the road.
And you did mention we're having a 33-foot easement on 65th.
Yes, that's being taken care of. Yeah. Both with the administrative and the preliminary plat.
If I may chime in and stop me if I shouldn't at this point, but shouldn't it be a little bit more thoughtful process than just let's take land and run it? The thought that someday we might use it. If you had a plan, some type of long-term vision that justified this, even something on the horizon that did, but to just take the land doesn't seem appropriate. And although I can't build on it, I can still use that land.
You can use it for anything you want as long as it's not needed for a road. All it is an easement for if there's a day when the road is needed, we don't have to come back and do eminent domain because it's already established that it's an easement.
Right.
It's still your property.
Well, it is and it isn't. If I can't do anything with it, is it really my property?
Now we have this guy sitting here.
I understood, but I can plant trees there. I can do a number of things, which I'm going to be really upset if, 25 years down the line, I have this nice grove of trees that gives me some buffer between my neighbors and things like that. And you guys come plow through it just because this was the convenient spot. You happen to have me over the barrel to take this land, when in fact, that might not be the most logical place to put the road. There hasn't been any true assessment. It's just, I happen to be doing this right now. And so the easy thing to do is to just take it from me. I don't think you should do the easy thing. You should do the right thing.
Well, no, we're still getting into the discussion about is it a take, and according to what we've been through with some court cases.
I have a half a dozen court cases listed here that disagree with that. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule.
Well, what's your pleasure? Moving on, do we grant this with the stipulations that are in there, the 10?
This is just a preliminary plat, so.
Okay. And I say we can have a staffing.
We can have the town engineer and the town attorney take a look at it and make sure that we have the right to do it. At least the engineer, at least so far, it says we do.
Is there a motion to accept the the resolution number 2021-10 with or without number 3? Include that in motion.
I would move to accept resolution 2021-10, striking number 3.
Is there a second to that motion?
I just don't see that road happening. I second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to extend, pass the, or, resolution 2021-10, striking number 3 and adding number 10, which is the culvert by engineer. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote by roll call. Mr. Duden.
Aye.
Mr. Hiller.
Aye.
Mr. Stoffels, no. Mr. Whitcomb.
No.
Mr. Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion is defeated. It has to be a 4/5 vote for the resolution.
Does it? I thought the zoning had to be 4/5. It was a simple majority.
Simple majority on a preliminary plat.
What's that?
Simple majority on a preliminary plat. Let me double check that.
The resolution has to be 4/5.
Well, for an ordinance, it did, but for the.
For the resolution.
Let me double check.
That came out.
I thought it was a simple majority. About that. It doesn't say anything about it says town board shall act to approve or disapprove the preliminary plat. Approval of the preliminary plat shall be passage upon a simple majority vote to the town board.
Okay, motion, motion is carried. We will pass resolution number 2021-10. Is there any further discussion on that request?
There was a request by Mr. Keppel about the fees. Just a little background on that. He had asked, at least at the planning commission, it was discussed to a great extent, or not discussed by the planning commission, but it was brought up by Mr. Keppel that he has made application fees, I believe totaling the $5,000 for the preliminary plat and the $100 for the administrative subdivision. He's asking because of the delays that this has caused him that those fees be waived. That is up to you. I would not recommend that you waive the park dedication fees because that's something that, again, he is benefiting from the subdivision of these lots and he should pay park dedication on. But I think, you should probably discuss if you're going to waive any of those fees.
Are these fees that were assessed above and beyond than what we would normally charge?
That's what you would normally charge.
It's not above and beyond.
It's not above and beyond.
They should stay in place.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Motion is made to retain the fees. Is that a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to retain the fees. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of retaining the fees, please sign by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. And next is home occupations.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next item, the Planning Commission has just been discussing some changes to the review of home occupations in each of the zoning districts. The Planning Commission has held a public hearing on this. They recommended approval of the changes to the home occupation section in 300-143. What this does, it similar to a lot of cities I deal with, we provide a 2-tier process for approval of a home occupation, such that just very minor permitted home occupations, what is referred to in the ordinance, those people working from home in an office, the general public does not come to the premises for any reason, would be a permitted home occupation. And then a special home occupation would require the interim use permit. And that's where you do have some employees, you have people coming in and out. It just makes it such that, a good example is Kathy's business would be a situation with an insurance agent working out of their house. may very rarely have a client come to the office if not, does not have any employees. That can be permitted with a permitted home occupation. Whereas someone who has a more intensive type of matter would require and has employees and so forth. We did, speaking of, Tom Duden's request for a home occupation, that did have to go through a interim use permit. We did put a provision that if no exterior operations shall be allowed unless the home occupation utilizes the same equipment or operations found as a permitted use for the property. So his main operation, as an example, is an agricultural use, and he's from time to time renting out agricultural equipment. That can be considered a permitted home occupation. You don't have employees coming in, you don't have others. So again, it allows some flexibility for his situation and maybe for others. So again, it's just a simplification of this. This would be a first reading of the ordinance on that home occupation, and we went through it pretty quickly, but it's more of a process type of item. And again, the planning commission worked on this over a number of meetings and felt pretty comfortable with this this new language.
Did they were discussing about doing a 2-tiered fee, or it was going to be 250 or 500, or does that get scratched? Or
no, that's something they don't establish the fees. You would establish the fees. So that's something or 22, excuse me. But that's something we should put a place marker on that we look at that for fees.
So if it was just being done administratively, we could have it probably be less than $100.
You could probably do a $100 administrative fee. Yeah.
Because we obviously have a lot of small businesses and people doing. I mean, technically, I think there are some daycares and CUPs or IUPs and
yeah,
some other things.
It'd be $250 for the IUP. It'd be, you could set it at $100 for the administrative one, or whatever you choose.
But we can't do that. I mean, that wouldn't be this.
I wouldn't do that now. I'd do that as part of the when you set the fees for next year.
is there a grandfathering period in our current ordinance for CUPs, IUPs?
Grandfather.
Businesses that have been in business for 15, 20 plus years where they're grandfathered in don't have to have them?
Right, if you have a situation where it's been there a long time, but if it is now a listed conditional use and they want to make changes to it, they'll have to go through the process, but they can continue to operate the way they have in the past. That's typical grandfather clause.
The proper action for tonight would be to move to waive the first reading and schedule the second reading for May 18th. Is there a motion to that effect?
I move that motion.
Motion has been made to waive the first reading and schedule the second reading for May 18th. And to amend the zoning ordinance. There's a second.
I would second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to waive the first reading, schedule second reading for May 18th, to amend the zoning ordinance allowing permitted home occupations with administrative review of special home occupations with the IUP with the language as found in the draft ordinance. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Next item is, I think we have it on here twice, motion to hire road maintenance workers.
We can wait until later, until the road portion of it, if you like.
Okay. I would like to just verify status, personal protection equipment for road workers. And I think we've seen, we all got the paperwork that said what the signs would cost.
Well, that's different. Well, that can be part of it, I guess. I thought there was something else that you were talking with Kenny about.
Well, those flip up signs and
Okay. it wasn't
and
there.
also helmets and chaps and so on.
So I did get I made a call here with EFA. and twisted his arm to get that price. A couple weeks ago, I called him about 1375 on those cones and came back with 14 something and what about 1375? But they were getting a 7% increase, but he said he'd hold that until the end of the month. So if we can decide today, that'd be $13.75 for 12 cones. We also get, you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner, the price was $4.92. 2 aluminum, no spring foldables. He said, you're not gonna need that. If you're not out in heavy traffic with winds and stuff, the placard's only a 3x3. So it'd be a 36-inch roll-up sign, work ahead. So that's information's here. I did some checking. These same exact cones are at another retail outlet for over $20. So it's a pretty good price on these. And I don't know if he said something down for this.
We're looking at now the 36-inch roll up. Those are like men working and
It says work ahead, yeah, road work ahead, like this one here in the upper left-hand corner of the picture. It should be.
those are how much? They,
So we've never had road cones, Kenny, in the back?
Where's that?
We've got cones, but we don't have the foldable signs.
How many cones do we have back there?
3.
Oh, okay.
They're not, I don't have any.
There should be- I think, like, in Elder Utility, that we had 5 behind the truck, 3 alongside, and then a couple more that direct people back and forth.
Because I don't even think during spring, whenever they spawn, there's probably some spots where we should probably have cones out in the roads where it's
For the transport.
for the frost boils out.
I know the county does that, because I described in the dirt roads and they had spots in there.
Mhm. How many did you say, Bill?
That's for 12 of them. We can get more, we can get 25 at that price too. I mean,
So 12 times 13.75 is,
double that, so 340 bucks.
I mean, it's not something, and, I mean, is there reflectivity on do they go bad just sitting in a shed, or is it just from sitting out in the elements?
It's the, you can't see there, it's the 3M. It's a reflective prismatic material, so it's good stuff.
I don't know, I'd say we should do at least a dozen.
I would think a dozen, because we're only gonna have 1 crew out on
Yeah.
those at the
And it's
So
not.
if you've already got 3, that you got 15 then. We've only got 44 miles of road.
I get them cones all the time through the auction, so if we think we want to add them,
Yeah, and I've got several of them that I own myself. If we feel that we need to have them, I could throw those in and we can look at this at another time to add more in if we need them. But I do have more that we can use at our disposal.
But now something totally different is the roll-up sign.
Yeah, these are I just got a quote for the 2 spring-loaded ones, kind of like this in upper left-hand corner. He shows the steel ones, but he came back with the aluminum ones would be a good one to go with, non-spring, with the 36-inch roll-up sign that say road work ahead. And your total there's at the bottom right.
How much traffic are we getting through on the roads? I mean, most anybody will see road cones, I mean.
In a curve.
Well, we just-
that's-
It's just a good idea to have that out there.
Mhm.
More than likely, we're only gonna have a 200-foot work area, I'm guessing, and we move ahead.
And the spring-loaded stands are how much?
Single spring are 102 each, upper right-hand corner versus 86. And he was just saying you probably really don't need the extra weight there too. And
That's just the extra weight, so if it's windy out, it'll.
yeah, I mean, the spring, yeah, so if the wind catches or high-speed traffic goes by, it won't tip it
Sure.
over. But he said you should be fine with a 36-inch. It's not gonna act like a sail.
So 2 stands and 2 signs would be how much?
2 signs, 2 aluminum no-fold springs with the, you want, with the safety cones, 12 of them is $492.
Well, so the total for 12 cones, 2 spring stands and 2 roll up,
2 non-spring aluminum stands.
2 non-spring. And that total is 400.
490.
I don't know why.
We should have something out there.
If we ever had somebody get hit by a car or something, it'd be,
Yeah, this is pretty cheap.
yeah, pretty cheap insurance.
I'd move that motion to purchase the products from, is it Earl Anderson?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to purchase 12 cones, 2 non-springs, and 2 36-inch roll-up signs for $490. Is there any further discussion?
Isn't he here saying that he prefers the single spring over the aluminum ones though?
No, I didn't want to print out all my emails back and forth. I mean, the conclusion he gave me was the bottom right-hand corner.
I was thinking
Yeah,
right here.
no, I know.
Say for another.
I know, I asked him that, I was just confused, and he's like, no, I shouldn't have put that in there.
Is there any
He was
further
talking about
discussion?
something else.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of purchasing 12 cones, 2 roll-up signs, and 2 non-spring stands for $490, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. And we have,
Second on that one?
$490?
Well, it's 492, there's tax, so, but we
Okay.
don't need to put we need to,
no, okay, we'll leave off the phone.
We can take the tax off.
but I mean, that's our shipping, I just,
Okay. I don't want to be handcuffed.
And we have,
Coming out of your paycheck.
we have some chaps and helmets.
yeah, I think Kenny picked up.
We haven't yet, but I want, once everybody gets hired, I'll get the sizes that they need. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
We have a motion to the purchase of chainsaw helmets and chaps for, could probably only be two people working at them at a time. Is there any discussion? Who's it voted?
I'll move the motion to get the protective wear.
I'd second that.
I'm all for safety, so I agree. Is there any further discussion on making sure we have helmets and chaps for the road crew? Is there any further discussion? If not,
We get plenty of hearing protection and everything back there, so we don't have to come back and make another motion to buy that. You got plenty of earplugs and gloves and all that stuff back
Safety
there.
glasses.
We don't have any of that. The glasses and the helmet, the face shield and the chaps come with the chainsaw kit. They're about $100, but there's no gloves. So there's buffs with it too.
On the helmet there is.
There isn't personal earplugs, but there's muffs that are attached to the helmet.
is there any further discussion on motion to purchase more protective equipment for the chainsaw crew?
Just want to set a dollar amount so we can just get it all taken care of.
I think we'll just authorize the purchase.
Okay,
I assume.
Princeton Rental, is that what you're looking to go through for the chaps and the?
I'm gonna check with them. Last stuff I bought over at Benbach, and they were somewhat cheaper than what Princeton Rental was on for the very same brand, very same product.
You just got to arm wrestle them a little bit better next time.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion to purchase adequate personal protection equipment for our road workers, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Review and confirm levy proposal. And I put out a whole sheet last month, and especially at the special meeting pertaining to if we were to increase our levy by so much, how that would affect us financially. I was not making that a rule, I was just making that a suggestion for going forward. After we looked at the road plan, it may be inadequate. I guess I'll let Bill have at it a little bit.
There. Trying to give me permission. So, yeah, so at last, the meeting, April 4th, I went into some extensive, the information was in the minutes from the 6th also. Our discussion was, there we go, okay. Was shared at that meeting. There we go. Large up a little bit. So without going into that whole presentation again, we can go back and look at it, but one of the things that we had kind of settled in on is that green area. As we know, we're considerably behind the 8 ball here when it comes to funding our obligations of the township for the roads. So the red portion is what Todd McClough had presented back in 2014 for a pavement budget of $392,545. And that didn't include the miscellaneous road with gravel and any maintenance as it relates to brushing, mowing, those types of things. And then we had the fire, general government. So at that time in 2014, this is about where our budget should have been, the 636,812. So that's what was discussed a few weeks ago. Now, as I mentioned, we lost 7 years, so we were going to think, okay, let's try to get this done in 10 years, because in 2028, I believe, we got 90% of our roads are going to be needing at least an overlay, not a repair, if not a reclaim and pave. So we're utilizing these numbers here in the green. And what Gene had proposed in his levy, I don't know if you guys ever listened to Gene talk about some of this levy information, this stuff here, but he's really has a good understanding of it. So what he had proposed is $231,000 for road. He had $58,000 for fire, and we had a general governance of $80,000. His proposed levy was $369,205. But then what he did to try to pull more money in for the road, he was to pull what we had from remaining balances from the previous years of the 213,397, and he threw in the gas tax. So what he had proposed on his proposal there, that yellow sheet that we got, was $476,602. So if you look at this number here, this is basically what we had at our meeting. At our meeting, we had this number figured in for the road. That's what I had showed everybody from the overhead, actually from the spreadsheet. 391 was what we had figured for our road and bridge. So even with Gene's, where we're at, we're actually sitting pretty good for next year. But the problem is that we're sitting here, we've got this extra 213 that is going to be gone. So we're carrying that money over to the next year in 2023. I know we're talking 2022 at this point, but we need to continue to look forward. So what we have happening is we've got inflation coming into play. So this, hope I'm not losing you guys. In 2023, our total budget is going to be for the road and bridges $494. So we're actually going to be $91,000 in the hole in 2023. Because we've got so far to go to catch up. Again, for those of you who weren't here at the last meeting, we've had 14 years of zero levy increase. We've lost over 22% of our purchasing power. So we're way behind and we've got a little bit of catch up to do. So with what I'm proposing, Gene had this total levy of 369,205. And even, like I said, even at our 424,586, the difference between those two is 55,381. We could maybe go somewhere in the middle, and instead of the 369,205, we would be at that plus this. We're looking at, well, I'll show it right below there. With the 425,8, that's the same number, 424,586 for the levy for 2022. Just because we're that far behind, even with that 424 in 23, we're $91,000 behind. And I'm really hoping that the LRIP project comes through. You remember me reading that? They have, I think it was twice as many people applied for that money as we had 7 years ago when they put in for that. So I would not count on us getting that LRIP. If we do, great. That means these numbers are still gonna have to stay where they're at. But, and we're gonna be having this discussion at the annual meeting.
You know, to come up with some budget shortfalls. I mean, I'm not trying to sell assets here, but we've got a road grader we haven't used in the last couple of years, and it's already 40 years old. It's not getting any younger. If anything, your seals are dry rotting. We've already thrown $600 worth of batteries at it. You know, all we're doing is just babysitting it. You know, for any small excavating company, it'd probably work out good, but, you know, for us to keep running the 40-year-old thing, it's not, you know, the cost effectiveness of it too. You know, that might help with some budget shortfalls.
And if we were to use it, we really would need to put money into a packer on the back to really make it
work, especially if you're putting chloride on everything.
So that's just some thought. As the board, we set the budget, and that's some of the things that I'll be looking at here. So for 22, we've got a kind of a handle on it. We still got a little ways to go, but the township voters get to approve the levy, and we just need to be able to show kind of where we're at and how far behind we are on what's needing to be done.
So if I can interrupt.
Sure.
If we take our total balance at the beginning of the year plus the increase in our proposed levy going up to 231,000 plus the 32,000 gas tax, we'd be looking at a total of 476,000 available for the road and bridge for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And what you ran out as a proposal for what we would spend in 2022 is 476.
No, what I had proposed at our meeting on the 6th was this number right here, the 391.
Okay,
So that blue number, that 85,602, we could carry over to the next year if we don't use it.
that would be our balance.
Yep.
At the end of 2020.
That's if the LRIP project happens and we get all that money to do those roads.
But then we also have an engineering cost of another 26,000.
No, that's included in here. That's included in this. That's included in the 391. Yeah. That's all this right here, this money here that pops up. I just split it between all three roads. So for those of you who can see or can't see, it's 8,600 per 1 mile section for the 25,800. So that number is included in the 391. This number right here. I know it's a little delayed, but
So if we don't get the LRIP, then we get 26,000
that we would,
that we're not gonna be spending.
well, I hope we do something on.
Right, we're gonna have to look at next, in
Yeah.
2023, we're gonna have to be more serious about 50.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
And it sounds like the LRIP is 1 year.
LRIP. Yeah, it's either, we have it slated for 2021, but we have it slated for, which is the budget we're talking about now. So, I mean, we could foreseeably, since we've got 85,000, I mean, we could do something with that 25,000. And we could fix, the soft spot on that first section south of 95 pretty easily with that kind of money. It'd be $110,000. And of course, we'd have a partnership with Wynette on that, hopefully.
I think they're only partnering to 26,000 for.
Well, that's for the LRI.
Right.
We've got to get our road agreements.
But if we go back to them and change it, they're gonna say their budget's already set.
Right.
So you would like to propose an added 15% for 20? Oh,
Yeah, that's about what it is.
2023.
That's
What about 2022?
That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking 2022 should be, because the difference between the 55,000 and the 91,000, we're still gonna be 36,000 short in 23. And a lot of this too, as I mentioned at the meeting on the 6th, you have to make a decision on 3 of those paved roads that are really, don't even really meet criteria for being paved. And
I've been driving up and down the road, and I've been thinking, at Baptist Church Road, you've got one business on each end of those roads that both deal with heavy machinery. You start throwing gravel in there, it's gonna be nothing but a nightmare for us trying to keep up on the maintenance and the road repairs with spring road bans. I'm not saying pave it all the way each direction, but at least from those businesses to the Rum River Drive.
Some of that city,
and that's all city, yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know if anybody's driven out west, but I mean, they do a lot of hauling on this. I mean, if we get the gravel up to where it needs to be and chloride that, they'll hold for it actually really well. I mean,
What about the road bans in the spring?
it's gravel, so I don't know if there is any road restrictions on gravel.
usually don't. Restrictions on gravel roads.
And the good thing about that area is it's all sand. So we're not gonna have any frost, issues with clay even. Because in 2022, I've got that south portion of Baptist Church Road slated for chip seal. And I'd rather not put the 13,000+ into it if we're not gonna maintain it. And those 3 roads I mentioned that last meeting is almost $1 million worth of maintenance over the next 26 years.
Yeah.
I know that's looking out a long ways, but that's what we need to do. We need to, we can't wait for the spring road review to make a decision on what we're gonna do with the roads.
So what's your proposal?
Well, I'm just at least somewhere in the middle here between that, between the 369 and the 424, we should, because we're looking at the proposed levy at 424, and what we should be is at 603. I mean, we're still $175,000 where we,
And once again, if you look at your township share of your real estate taxes, the last 2 years it's dropped below 13%. So your total real estate tax is 3,000. Your township portion is going to be $260 or less.
well, and we've added a lot of properties over this past several
Right.
years. So a lot of people are gonna see really almost no effect on their levy.
You should have seen a decrease in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I saw an $18 decrease in my levy last year from Princeton.
Just so we,
So this is just, I'm just throwing it out there.
if we put it into perspective, like I think we brought up last month, if we raise it to 4% and your real estate tax is $3,000, it's going to be about $1 a month increase.
Right, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. I did another little chart here. It's the aggregate effect of what $5 a month means. It's over, I don't want to get into all that detail right now. I'll talk more about that next month if we need to. You can see the tab at the bottom is $2.50 annually equals about $25 a month. That's the chart I'm on right here. So there's different charts that show different, what we could be, where we'd be at different annual. So that was 25 cents a month increase. So it sounds like a lot, but when it's spread out over everybody, it's very little. So, like I said, if anything, I think most people with what you had proposed, I think what you and I figured that it would probably still show a negative on next year's levy on their taxes.
Because the increase in estimated market value for the township went up 7.9 million, I believe it was. And the percent of the total increase in their estimated market value was 7.7. So by raising it 6%, we're actually going to see a decrease again next year.
So there's no net increase in anybody's levy that they're gonna see on their taxes.
Until we went over 7.7, and then next year, we're gonna see a lot more increase in new housing. So
For 23.
we go up to 7.7 this year and stay even, and I think my proposal is about 5. And then next year, we could probably go up more than that because the increase is gonna be more. If you wanted to hold it partway this year, go up a little bit more, and I'd say mine was just a guideline, and it's certainly not meant to be dictated.
I really didn't have anything other than that, just this is just for some things for everybody to kind of chew on here, and so people understand where we're at, where we need to be. And again, as the board, we set the budget, but the electors, they're the ones who actually set the budget. We need to have a good, the levies, we need to have a good budget set for them so they know what's needed.
And another thing we can do is slant more of it away from governance and put one down to 60,000 and take a general fund, add 20,000 to the road budget and stay with about the numbers we had.
And that's what we did a couple of years ago. It used to be, what was the general
One year
government?
we were even 120,000 or 160,000 each.
Yeah, so we've lowered that.
We minus the fire, governance and road and bridge were the same, so it was about 270 divided by 2, 135,000 each.
So we've made that change. We've made that shift. So our general governance now is down to 80, and next year we could make it 70 or maybe even 65. But eventually, we're dipping into that general governance reserve. We can only do that for so long.
Oh, we still have,
Doug's gonna get paid.
we still have over 200,000 reserve in the general fund.
How much?
We still have over 200,000 reserve.
Oh, yeah.
Or we did at the end of 2021. Or end of 2020.
Is that kind of what you're thinking, Gene? I mean, that's kind of discussion, review, confirm levy.
I think so, just to get an idea of where, just kind of remind you people so that in May we have to make it a little bit firmer. Just leave some more options. So I think in May, we gotta get down to the draft text and actually make a proposal, because before June 1st, we have to have our budget proposal made public. Is that good?
That's all I have on this one.
Moving on to select planning commission members. And if you want to allow each of them to introduce themselves, or you've got the 4 sheets, I believe. Mary Regal, I don't believe is here. Steve?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm Steve Blager. I think I sent a letter to Doug. If you have any questions or me.
Okay. And Kathy?
Just a couple statements. Most of you know me pretty well. I've been a lifetime resident here almost 7 decades. I have a history with the Planning Commission that I've dealt with over a decade of change and challenge. I do take time to be well-read for each meeting with township ordinance and comp plan. And we know change is inevitable, and I would appreciate the continued opportunity to have a voice and a vote into the future. And I'll strive to be a voice of reason as we plan into the 21st century. Thank you.
Before we move, I'm going to give a quick lesson in parliamentary law. Many times there's a dispute between somebody making a nomination merely puts a name on the ballot. A motion is completely different. It's treated as a motion. It requires a second. The nomination does not. So ideally, we would have a motion, and the correct form of a motion is I move that we jump up and down 3 times. It's not I make a motion or I move a motion. It's I move that we whatever. And just so we have a clear understanding between the difference between a nomination and a motion to appoint. So I will now open it up to a motion to select 2 of the planning commission members. You also have Terry's, I believe.
Yep, Terry's Orton.
And Mary Riddell.
And yes.
Yes, that's the email.
So it's pronounced Riedel, by the way.
Mary, and it's M-E-R-I, Riddell.
Riedel, correct.
Okay.
She
And she was
corrected
invited to.
I did. I delivered an invitation to her house. But no, I don't know if she's able to make it or.
Refresh my memory, Steve, you've been a member of the township for what, 6 years was it?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I was a township, I was on the Big Lake Township.
Big Lake, that's what it was.
Yeah, for 7 years. I lived in that area for 30 plus years. And then when I retired, or that looks like, I moved up here 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just reading through everything and trying to remember off the top of my head.
No, yeah. My network that I run in is that there will be plenty of expansion going on up here over the next years.
So,
yeah,
for my own, and maybe possibly the board, what have you seen, in that township? Because that is also a town that's starting to grow. Have you seen some similarities in kind of the developments in the last couple of years here? I'm trying to pick your brain.
Oh, sure.
Because all we did was just here's who I am.
You're right. Fair enough. Big Lake Township, is your question directed in regards to the planning commission?
Just in your history experience with the other township, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of different changes. We had 75 miles of roads that were all paved. we didn't talk gravel. We dealt with a lot of developments. So our fighting was, ag was kind of, by then was mostly pushed out, if you will, because of the development of housing. So we had that going on, and we were always fighting with the developers because who's going to be responsible for it. They wanted to make the cul-de-sac longer. But the biggest fights we were having, the biggest changes was solar energy. And we really got ahead of the ball on that one because there was a lot of subsidies going in. They wanted to bring in the solar energy and just put them in, put up a fence around it and walk away. It really became an eyesore. And because so many, the area was developed with homes. So we started coming in and saying, you know, things like, you got to put in a tree buffer. And then we also made them put in an escrow because someday they're going to find out that taking a solar panel that's 20 years old, put it in the ground, you can't grow flowers over it anymore or something. So we were doing things like that. But I just see what's in, I keep hearing that term 25 years. I just see that once those 4 stoplights go out, come out of Elk River. I mean, if you go drive through town here, you'll see they're flipping houses that I thought should have been bulldozed. I mean, I drive 120 miles a day here because I'm a bus driver. And I can't believe what's already just in 2 years is happening around here. So I think staying ahead of it is really my best observation.
Well, thank you for that. I think my mind's made up right now. I think both you and Kathy bring a lot to the team. Kathy brings the history of the township for 70 plus years.
Almost.
Yeah, don't put her in my category.
But I also see a lot of benefit from you, Steve, too, also being, you know, in a different township that went through that growth. And, you know, you're going to see the red flags before we, you know, I love Terry and I love what she's done for the township the last couple of years, but that's just your experience, you know, just that short term there. I think that's going to play a huge asset for us. So I would move to nominate Kathy and Steve.
I'll second that.
Move to appoint.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Steve and Kathy to the planning commission. I will abstain. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion?
For a second.
If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion is carried. We'll put Steve Flygar.
You want to try that? It's good. You did it. I just want to see if you can spell it too, but.
Oh, EFLAAGAR.
Half of the letters are unnecessary.
Yeah, we were a poor German family. We couldn't afford vowels.
I put umlauts on them.
And Kathy Stoll. Thank you. Resolve conflict with the airport and planning commission meet at the same evening. And John was appointed to liaison for both. I'm on the airport board.
So Gene's got that one then.
Is that
Is that okay with you?
You know, hindsight, looking at it, because I'm moved the motion to put John on the airport board.
No, planning
The
commission.
planning commission. I think it would be, you know, hindsight, looking back at it, you know, maybe if we kept Dan on the board, since he's already kind of got that established. He's a year into it with trying to, versus throwing someone new in. I don't know if it shouldn't be nominating people right now, Dan, but just getting.
It's fine. I'll fill the spot. I have no issue with it, whatever.
What's that motion?
I would move to appoint Dan Hiller to the planning commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
You want the knife back?
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Dan Hiller as liaison to the planning commission. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion to appoint Dan Hiller as planning commission liaison, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Road report,
Oh,
5 minutes.
Yep. Plus a few. First item on the agenda, on this, under the road report was, kind of goes to the complaint and also the road repair that was needed on 105th. Residents have a complaint that local farmers damaging roads and ditches by driving through ditches and parking and driveway heavy equipment on gravel roads and blocking the road. So that was one of the things that was brought up too about the.
And the amount.
What?
The amount for the
I
repair.
don't know.
This
I
last
don't know which
item.
one it was. There was two of them for, one was for 250, the other one was for 1,060. 1310 for total.
One was probably gravel alone and the other one was probably the
one was,
separated out.
yeah, well, because they were done at two separate times, yeah. So the one was the north end, which was considerably more material and skid loaders, and the other one was just a mud hole, just about 1,300 feet. So I guess, you know, for the residents that are, I mean, at some point, some of these roads are, I mean, we're in a ag, I mean, country here. I mean, utilizing the roads is one thing. I didn't really see a lot of equipment that was really in the way. I mean, you can drive around it.
I guess I don't have
The
a
whole
problem
point-
with their parking their equipment on the road when they're doing that stuff, but I mean, if they're going through the ditch and they're causing damage to the road, I'm sorry, that's an expense that needs to go to the farmer. I mean, why do other township?
Did you find any damaged ditch when you looked?
I didn't necessarily see it. That was just their complaint. They're driving through the ditches. The thing that they were concerned about is all the mud that was being pulled up onto the road and not being cleared out. And then it was just turning into kind of a slop. You know, in the spring, it would all melt. Anything that was pulled onto the road in the fall, that was left there and it would freeze. And they're driving it all winter, and then it freezes in the thaws in the spring, and you get, you know, an inch of just slime from basically where they were coming out of the field down around the corners. I think we threw in, I don't know how many loads of gravel just to kind of soak it up and spread it out. I think it was 3 or 5 loads just down in that area. And this year was a year that that end of the township it was scheduled to have some new gravel on there, so that's a good thing. And then the north end was just, I don't know, was pounded with a lot of things coming in and out. But again, it's spring. We had rain. This was all the time when we had 3 or 4 days of rain. I was sent several photos.
As was I. I don't know if I tear my road up, I'm expected to have a bill, I guess.
I mean, I just look at Hob and Child Farms, they farm right across the road from me. Granted, 50th Avenue is a busted up junk road, but you know, they damaged the road going out there last summer, and they had Wood Brothers come out and they patched where they damaged the road, and they put a tar approach going into their farm field. So I understand farmers are trying to make a buck, but I mean, if you're damaging the road, that's not the township's expense, that's your expense. So I think the bill should be passed on to the farmer that did the damage, and
How do you prove which one did it? We're not the only ones that farm down that road.
Do you have a driveway access to your field there, John?
It did. They rezoned and, or
They did.
resurveyed and we lost our driveway because they resurveyed it, but we didn't lose that until this spring. I haven't been in the field since last fall. Shelley's used that same ditch driveway there that in and out of that field. It's like shared.
Most of the damage occurred this spring though, right?
Yeah, well,
And we weren't even in there this spring.
last fall, I guess, I was gonna say, a lot of it, the sloppy areas was from last fall's, you know, pulling out of the fields and leaving mud on the
But
road.
as far as the ruts in the road this spring, that was all.
Yeah, that was this spring.
Yep. I mean, going by Minnesota state statutes, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Implements of husbandry, farm machinery is exempt from spring weight restrictions. But you can only do 500 pounds per inch of tire. You know, so there's load capacities, but in a general sense, they are exempt. You know, I'm trying to play both sides of the table here. But at the same time, if one person tore the road up, I think that party is responsible too.
And not that we can keep this from happening, but they're requesting that the driveway culvert permit be denied. Because they feel that the access to the fields can happen by going on the field instead of having to use the road.
Say what now?
There's field access to the north field. There's.
Yeah, off of 169.
Well, no, there's going through the fields, you can access that through the fields. That's there.
Oh, so going around, so what if you got soybeans here, corn here, soybeans here, and you got to get over there to spray your beans?
I'm not making an argument. I'm just saying that they were saying that they can access their fields through like a field road or something. But again, this is a farming community and I mean, in areas.
I don't know, I know when I haul shit in my tractor, sorry, we're on the internet, manure on the internet, and we get it all over the road, I try to take a skid out, clean it up as best as I can. You know, yeah, there'll be a little bit of some, but.
Yeah, you can never get it all.
No.
We do the same thing. Like last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, I had a hydraulic hose break in my tailgate because I always locked the tailgate down, put it in float, so the pressure's down on it, and that hose burst and it just went up just enough to leave a little streak. And I took the skid loader and backbladed it, but you're never gonna get it all.
Well, backblading it is a totally different thing than getting it off the road.
Well, yeah, you get your, as much off as you can, and then you gotta backblade it.
I would think some of it was natural mud from 4 or 5 days of continuous rain, but it was really torn up.
I got several calls from the gal at the end. And it's not the ones who made the original complaint. It's another resident who was concerned about making it to medical appointments because of the how much mud she was having to drive through. That's just gonna get stuck.
Gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Agricultural operations are the backbone of this community and where we're from. People are complaining about mud or tracking on the roads. I think this is the reason why the township should not be rezoning agricultural land to residential. These folks need to move or stay in the metro if that's their concern. This is pitiful.
Sorry, this is out of order. Mr. Riverblood, just to respond to your deal, I'm not complaining about the mud on the road. I'm complaining about a $1,300 bill we got repairing the road. I understand stuff's gonna happen, but it's not the taxpayer's job to pay for damage to the roads done by area farmers. I understand. I'm trying to work with them as best as I can, but that is not a township expense.
It's up to the board. Assess damages, part of damages, nothing.
John, you said it's you and I'm.
Shelley's farm down there too.
You know.
We haven't been in there.
I'd be happy if you guys both sat down and you guys paid the bill and you guys figured out how to not tear the road up. If you gotta wait until the ground dries a little bit, you know, I understand you're trying to make a living. I understand you're trying to farm. I'm not trying to knock you at all, but I just don't think that should be getting billed to the township for you guys getting out in your field. I mean, if there's not a proper approach, then you guys need to put a proper approach.
Well, we're trying.
I haven't had nothing come across my board yet, so.
Well, ask Doug. Are we not trying to put in a field approach
There's a
there?
driveway permit.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm all for it. If you're trying to get a better road approach in there, great. But still, the damage done to the road happened and we got billed for it. I think you and the Shelley should pay for that. And let's get this issue straightened out and try to not have the issues in the future. That's all I'm saying.
Bill, was it all damage or was there some that was already budgeted for that?
I didn't have anything planned for that yet. I mean, we'll be up there, we'll do more.
Didn't split us how much gravel was put on.
I don't have it with me. I think it was 4 or 5 loads total. So that 250 was probably the one load right up here by the north end.
And I spread that out for
For Brian.
Brian. He stopped me in the farm there and he said he didn't have a skid loader and asked me to spread it out for him.
And then the other end would be, I think there was 4 loads, so, it had to be 3 loads. 250 apiece. So $1,000, well, no. Yeah, $1,000 total would be the gravel. 310 was their just labor with the skid loader on the north end. From what I recall.
Do you want to take some of the costs that are use of the gravel off their bill and then send a bill for 1,310 for part of it, or what's the board's decision?
I would think being responsible for the bill in total. I mean, even though we are budgeting to put more on there, we haven't put any more on there yet.
Well, when was the last time that road ever had any gravel? It's been a long time.
But at the same time, it was also wet when it was done.
When?
The damage was done. When we had 3 inches of rain in 3 days, that's when the majority of the damage was done.
Right, but we haven't been back there. That's why the corn's still there. We're waiting for everything to shape up.
What's the decision? So we make a proposal, we can,
I would move to send the bill for the total amount to split between the 2 farms.
I'd second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to send her $1,310 bill to one farm and then split, or what do you want to do that?
I'd like to split 50/50.
Send a bill for $655 to Wilhelm, $655 to Shelley's.
That's fair.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Last time that road had gravel was in 2016.
Motion has been made and seconded to send the bill for the entire amount to Shelley's and Wilhelm Farms. Is there any further discussion? There's no further discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no.
No.
I guess I haven't cast the deciding. I guess I will vote for the motion.
What was the,
They can come in and appeal it.
what's the conclusion?
3, 4, and 2 no.
We can't vote.
I suppose we should actually say it.
Well, I don't own the land. I don't own anything. I rent.
All right, we'll just make sure that we have a 3-2 vote. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That's to send the bill, and I broke the tie, so I'll vote too. And opposed, raise your hand. And the vote is 3-2 in favor of sending the bill. And we'll probably get hear from them more than just check.
Mr. Chair, unless the board needs me for anything,
I think
bug out
that's all right.
before they shut the gates to Hennepin County. I promise. Thank you.
Yeah, it happened 5 hours ago.
This item is review dust control code.
So this is you'll see in front of you, the Central Minnesota Dust Control. I sent quotes on that. They came in actually lower than I was expecting, which is good because I rounded up a little bit. So these are the quotes. I'm just looking, I have a motion accepting or denying this dust control quote.
The motion to accept or deny the vote. You got it on both. I don't have mine in front of me.
It was 63, well, you got this information in front
It
of you.
was so much per square foot, wasn't it?
It's a running foot, 18 feet
But then
wide.
you have the detailed numbers, right?
Yeah, then I have the detailed numbers from.
And that was 20,000.
Well, I had 2 separate ones that I sent in for a quote because I don't know, depending on where we're at in the summer, if it's dry, we might need to have a second application. If it's wet, we're good. But usually that first application is going to be a little bit heavier than the second one. A lot of times it'll carry us right through into the winter. One thing we don't want to do is allow it to get too dry and then basically you have to start over. So at this point.
So you're right at 20,000.
Well,
$500 for the.
Yep.
If we do the 2 applications.
Yeah, if we do 2, otherwise the one application is just under 12.
But it had been holding the roads together better though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are we seeing the washboarding effect? I'm trying to remember here from the last meeting.
No.
Are we seeing the washboarding effect?
No, sometimes what'll happen though, they'll get like a pothole or something like that, but it's not the washboarding.
Like what that road historically has been?
Oh, yeah, no, not like that. In fact, I had received last year, I don't know, 3 or 4 calls from the residents that live on there and drive that constantly. And they were like, man, I wish we could have done this.
That was a magnesium, right?
Magnesium chloride.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's on 35th and we had it placed in other locations last year and now we're just expanding it just a little bit to some of the higher ADT roads. So.
And one of those roads, you reduced the number of road grading from 8 to
Yeah, so the test strip that we did was on 35th, and the comparable road was 17th. And after applying the chloride, 35th only, I think it was required 2 gradings after that, and 17th had, I think, 8. So if we can, talking with Steve Haas about it, I'm hoping to get once we start applying the chloride, is to only have to grade the road maybe 2 to 4 times a year versus 12 to 15. And then it holds those fines, like I said in the past, it holds those fines in the road, and we're not having to apply the gravel as much either. So if we have to freshen it up, we can do it with 1 inch of gravel versus 4, 3 inches. So that's where the savings come in. You don't start seeing that savings till about the 3rd year, it's just like anything else. Takes a little while to kick in. It's that very first year. You see those savings on the grading portion of it, but you don't see it on the material portion of it for a couple of years.
And then are we looking at, were they doing some reclaiming, trying to pull the stuff out or not? Was that kind of a?
It just makes a mess.
Good.
Reclaiming it. I mean, you can get it up on the road, but it's a slimy mess.
And throw the dirt and the grass.
Yeah, Steve, talking to him about it, there's some areas where they could do some reclaiming with that Harley rake.
Mm-hmm.
And just right on the edges and pull some of that in, and then let the wind blow the chaff away once that Harley rake really beats it up good.
Yep.
But anything out further than a couple feet, it's
For $250 for a truck of gravel, it's probably not worth it.
No, it's better to, if we have curbing and stuff like that happening, it's not a bad idea to get it up on the road and then haul it away, not try to reuse it. That was the thought. That's another thing, we have to have a reclaimer that, I don't know that we'll ever, talking with Brian, when he used that, the mast is really too light to use it, because if you don't feather that just right, and you catch a gopher mount or something, it puts you right in the ditch. It's not the easiest thing to use. And it's, again, you're just pulling stuff up on the road that's really not high quality. You're gonna pull it up on the road, you're gonna it's gonna be months before you have a decent traveling surface again.
We are talking about the motion to approve or deny the quote from Minnesota Dust Control.
I would move that motion to approve for the 2 applications.
Mr. Dillon made a motion to accept the quote from Central Minnesota Dust Control. Is there a second?
I can second that.
And the second, or the total is just about 22,000.
And I'm going to be limiting that to only when it's needed. Oh, absolutely needed. I'm not gonna let it wear out though, because then you're just having to apply it at a higher rate in the future. So, yeah, just.
Well, motion has been made and seconded to approve the bid, or the quote from Central Minnesota Dust Control. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Review pricing for traffic control devices. We already did that.
I spoke a little bit on the next item, send out requests for quotes for crack filling and chip sealing. Last month, I talked about working with the joint powers with the city. And after speaking with them a little bit, and Jason, I think it's probably best that we just kind of have our own quote with them. And because I'm going to be working with some of the same people that the city of Princeton is, we get the good pricing on it. But it's just a lot cleaner if we have our own contract with them. Some of the roads are shared roads, and Bob and Patrick from Baldwin said to just send them an invoice for anything that's a
We
shared
do
road.
have that new shared road, is it 110th? Right past your place, John, on the back side.
67th.
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact address was, but I know we plowed them out a couple of times last year. They're pretty well self-sufficient, but I know that's one road we've got to look at, whether that's going to be a Greenbush or us, or, because it's kind of a shared road almost.
Well, that one is actually ours, and we're gonna be graveling it. That one, I've got that one set for gravel this
But
spring.
we may work on an agreement with Greenbush for them to do the grading.
It'd be nice.
So we wouldn't have to run up all the way up there with a grader.
Okay, I'll make sure I talk to them on that. So that's the plan for the crack sealing. But again, one of the roads that's on there is Baptist Church Road South, and we can put it out another year if we want. But like I said, I don't want to spend the money on chip sealing if we're not going to keep it paved. I mean, we're already having to patch. There's probably 4 potholes in there this year. And once it starts going, it's going to start going. And I can't just do a chip seal. I'm going to have to patch those potholes, and then we have to do a chip seal. So it's not going to be 13,000 to do that. It's probably going to be closer to 15.
Now, if we go on our own, we could still get the city to do the sweep.
Yeah.
And give us a little credit for the.
Yeah. So that's, what we did last year is company swept it up and Princeton hauled it away, and for hauling it away, they kept the rock. And again, I ran that past Steve Hass, and he said that was a pretty good deal what came out of there. So that's the direction I'm going on that.
But we don't actually have a quote at this time from.
No, I just wanted to keep everybody appraised as to what's kind of the direction we're going, because at the last meeting, I asked if I could work with Jason on getting a joint powers, and that's decided that we're probably not going to go that direction if everybody's okay with that. Not going JPA. But again, to get these quotes out to them, I need to know if we want me to include Baptist Church Road or not.
I guess at this point, I'm not quite ready to turn my back on the tar road, so I guess I'd rather we at least got the quote on it, and we can make the decision after we get the quotes and have a road tour with Todd and whatever, but I guess right now I'm not ready to turn my back on the tar road yet.
Okay.
And with the 2 businesses, you got Pikes or whatever they are now, and you got Midwest there, you got 2 businesses that are.
Concrete right there too.
What's that?
Thompson Concrete.
Thompson Concrete too, yeah.
Midwest is, I'm just talking the south portion, the leg that goes south, because it's less than 180 T. The one that goes past Midwest is 400.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure when you're talking south end, what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I just, you got a lot of heavy equipment coming up and down those roads.
I understand. I'm throwing it out there because we got some big decisions on what we're gonna do with which roads, which ones gotta get, which ones. That was the low hanging fruit when I talked 2 weeks ago, and that's.
And I'm just driving them the last couple of weeks, just driving around checking some roads. It's just in my back of my mind going.
Yeah, so it's the feeling would be to say.
Okay, we'll keep it in as a quote then. And then the next item is just to verify, I know we had Steve Flager on as a road maintenance worker. He's still available when he can. But I'd like a motion to officially, we hired Dale, but I just don't remember actually getting a motion on the hire of Dale. We were given approval to interview him. And also Ken, and then Dan and I interviewed Tony Trunk. So I'd like a motion on the hiring of 3 part-time road maintenance workers, Dale Henshin, Ken Henshin, and Tony Trunk.
Question, do we need to have a motion for Kenny since he's kind of already, when he's doing his janitorial stuff, he gets paid his janitorial fee, and then we already did we agree that if he was out doing road stuff, he'd get, so isn't that aspect already,
Yeah, the motion last meeting was a little bit ambiguous, so maybe just make it clean, though.
Yeah,
I have a motion to hire all 3.
I'd make the motion to hire Ken Henshin, Dale Henshin, and Tony Trunk as part-time road maintenance workers.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would second that
Motion
motion.
been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Thank you too for going through the process with me. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried.
All right, the last, well, second to the last, I guess.
Third to the last. Fourth to the last.
This is for Saturday's road review. Sleep on this. This is kind of what we're gonna be looking at for the road rating system. Todd will be here. We want to mark your scores down as we go. These are the paved roads that we'll be looking at, just so we're all ready to go. And I don't really have anything.
We did paved roads last fall. Are you doing?
We're just gonna do them all again.
Okay.
40th is really falling apart. It's kind of a no-brainer, but we'll just look at them all. And then I figured if we could get a couple of them with Todd, the gravel, and then after he could, I don't know why there's nothing that really stands out in my mind that Todd would need to come along with those, unless you guys can think of it, but Thomas won't be here, so we need to have a vehicle.
I've got a vehicle. I can't get away this Saturday, so.
I don't mind driving. So, okay, all right. And then, the last item, if you guys got that, email from Matt about sending in, important transportation funding for townships. Basically, you just open up, so about 6:45 this morning, I opened up an email, I saw it, put my name in there. Our state representative and senator showed up, I hit send. This was what the request was, and I'll give you their response real quickly. Dear Senator Matthews, as a township official in your district and constituent, I'm writing with an urgent transportation related update and ask for your support. It has been a number of years since townships have received substantial increases in road and bridge funding, and we need your help. We support the increase in dedicated sustainable funding for town roads from the auto parts sales revenue currently in both the House and Senate omnibus transportation finance bills. The Senate version also provides a one-time 2-year allocation of additional funds for townships. The combination of funds with the auto parts sales tax revenue provides slightly $15 million plus 14 for the next 2 fiscal years. This will allow me and other township officials to predictably set our road maintenance budget for the next 2 to 4 years. In 2015, TFACT suggested a $15 million increase for townships to simply maintain current roads. By now, that estimate would be probably closer to 20 million. Townships maintain approximately 39% of Minnesota roads. That's over 55,000 miles, as well as about 6,000 bridges, of which over 400 are on deficiency list. Road and bridge expenditures are the largest expense of the townships at the cost of over 170 million per year around the state. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, Bill. Andrew Matthews got back to me fairly quickly. He just said thank you for reaching out regarding township funding for transportation, and he gave me the whole numbers of what they're looking at for small cities, townships, and gave a breakdown of that. So if you send that on to him, I'm sure you'll get that same information back. We will continue to advocate for your township. And a little disturbingly, I received one from Sandra Erickson. Bill, thank you for the note, but I think you have a conflict of interest as a state employee, MnDOT, and serving as a township supervisor to promote this proposal. I also have issues with your position as a state employee for MnDOT in regard to the removal of some of the signage in our township. I believe again that you have a conflict of interest, Sandra. I responded to her. I'm waiting for her response. So I sent a message out to Matt about this issue. Steve, this is Steve Fensky. I'd like to get your thoughts on this message I received from my state representative, Sandra Erickson, regarding an email I sent out this morning that Matt had encouraged us to send out. My background, I am a MnDOT employee, and I have spoken with HR about this potential conflict of interest before I run for Branford Township Supervisor. MnDOT HR is perfectly fine with me holding the Township Supervisor position. Thanks for your time, Bill Whitcomb. Steve's response, Bill, hi, Bill. No, there is no conflict of interest in the state government employee holding a local government elected officials. Conflicts of interest are raised when an officer has a personal financial interest in a contract with the town or the outcome of a vote. There is nothing like that here, and I expect any state employees serve in local government. Nor is this an incompatible office. Your employment with MnDOT does not impose any duty that makes service to the township impossible or requiring you to make decisions of which the two to fully represent. The money we are seeking does not come from MnDOT and is not used by MnDOT. So there isn't any overlap there. Thank you for sending this email to your representatives. We do appreciate it. And I'm expecting a response from Sandra. I sent her an email and I'll be reading that at next month's meeting. So just in case people think there's a conflict of interest, that's not the case. And as far as the signs, it's been stated a million times, and she's received the information from Doug and myself. And I'm just really getting tired of hearing about the sign issue because it's not an issue. And whoever's pulling their head full of that, anyways, I'm done.
Next, we can now go to approval claims for approval. Is there a motion to accept the claims for approval? This was tabled till after the road report with the complaint. Is there a motion to accept the claims for approval?
So the township's gonna pay this bill and then hope that we're gonna get reimbursed when we bill?
I believe we're obligated to pay the bill.
Make a motion to pay the claims list.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the claims. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, we are obligated to pay the claim. We can go after somebody for restitution that we must pay it. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of accepting or approving claims, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Board of Audit. And we have each.
Yes, we're now proceeding to Board of Audit. Okay. And John, I didn't get anything from you, but if you want to do something now, I can show you what. I requested that each supervisor go through the list of receipts and disbursements, pick out 3 of each, and deliver it to me for me to document so that we can have a review of those, any expenses, any payments and monies to properly conduct the Board of Audit, which hasn't been done, I guess, forever here. So this is our first shot at it. I appreciate everybody's work. Here's yours.
Yep.
And I've pulled the documentation on that. If you go through it, the point that John Archer made is one that was made by other people, including Lucinda Messman, our main trainer, and the other people at MAT, is that your monthly review of the claims and receipts and all that puts you in a much better position than if you were not paying that much attention to it. So, if you have any questions about any of those, let me know.
I do.
Yeah, personally.
What?
So this $6. How does that show?
I'm sorry, what?
The dollar amount, how does the dollar, this currency dollar show up on?
It doesn't show up on here, it's part of the deposit.
Okay.
So you requested Betsla Builders. This Betsla Builders check was deposited on that,
Oh, okay.
okay?
All right.
That's what you want.
Should this not also have the actual bank receipt for the deposit, not just the deposit, but with the actual receipt that you did? I'm not sure if that's what we should be doing. I think we should maybe have.
Okay.
Just to have proof that it was actually, I don't know, I'm.
New thing for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're attached to the
Oh, I see.
copy of the deposit. So if you want, I can go bring that.
No, should we sign on the bottom where it says authorized by? Or don't we need to?
No, that's just, these are just, I just printed out the
Okay.
documentation from CCAP.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you want me to produce a deposit slip, I can do that. It's in the drawer.
I'm so sure. It's essentially just a spot check.
Right.
Yeah, this is what we always were supposed to be doing and we never did in the past.
It's to keep the person who's putting the bills and numbers in there kind of, it makes sure to keep them honest, because if you do that one time, that one you want to look at and it's not, it just is a double check. You want to see all of them, you can do that, but.
This took a little bit of work.
Yeah, we learned
Thank you, Doug.
with new training for clerk treasurer, deputy clerk treasurer, we learned things that we never knew we had to do before.
Well, it was something that apparently just got inherited from one board to the next. It wasn't any particular decision. It was just, that's what they thought had to be done. And I only found out about it because I asked a question to Matt.
You wrote that back or?
Oh, I just printed that out for anybody to look at if they want to. But it's only keep it on file.
That's only for board members.
Sure.
Page 22.
Oh, okay.
If somebody needs to see it, they have to go through the county or state auditor.
Okay.
Last paragraph.
Okay. Same as before, I was drinking the final one. Look our over here.
Yeah. You know, we used to each get a copy. Personal copy, but we don't need them.
Doug?
Yes, sir.
Question for you. With our deal with Scott Richards, does he round up or were he still where he's counting an hour 30 at $100 an hour, he's charging 150, so we're rounding up? Is that part of our contract? Or-
Tom, can I use your pen?
So it should be 100.
That's 1.5.
Oh, 30 minutes, 30
Half hour.
Okay, thank you. I got 4.5 hours sleep last night. Hopefully nothing burns.
Next year,
So
we'll
why-
do this in February.
Yeah,
Right.
What,
February.
what is the, so what do they provide here? This is we don't have it.
Sorry, what?
What is this? What did they do for? Didn't know attorney.
Yeah, they were the keys in their letter and whatever. Supposed to be our.
Oh.
Something we learned.
That's before we finish.
So I'd say it has nothing to do with this letter and letter.
Yep.
I gotta go talk to my oldest daughter about it.
My wife works over there. Within Board of Equalization tomorrow night.
Oh, sure.
Tomorrow night?
Great. Mr. Dahl, Board of Equalization tomorrow night, 6 o'clock.
Board of, yeah, LBAE tomorrow night, 6 o'clock.
Who did? I mean, I watch my ass every time I go down there.
There's a gold farm over there. That's where I came up with that.
No, you don't want to do it.
We need at least 3 people here. Can I make sure we have 3 people tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock?
Oh, well, I have to be here.
Picked out.
Well,
Oh, no, yeah, I'll be here.
we're both certified, so at least one of us has to be here.
What time?
6 o'clock.
I can guarantee you that.
No. They could do it via telephone. That's what we did last year, I know.
I see that.
Conference call last year.
I think that's legal.
No, if you're hard enough to get the phone number to call in, I can do whatever. It's a telephone number. I'll send them an email that way.
That's just.
You have a good one. Doug, is the clerk at Princeton Township email working yet?
It is.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm trying to encourage that email to get, to encourage people to transition over to that email. Because I can manage it better. I can make folders and store things properly instead of leaving everything in the inbox.
Oh.
Man.
So are we gonna, it's a different topic. Let's get emails.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. That'd be a good idea.
Just put it on my to-do list.
If there is no further business, we can have a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, should we have a motion to
Accept
the audit? Yeah.
Do we need to sign it?
No, there's no.
I make the motion to approve the board of audit.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I second that.
Motion been made and second to approve the Board of Audit. It will be in February next year. Is there any further discussion? Not, we will proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion's carried. Remember, Board of Equalization tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. Motion to adjourn.
10:06. Thank you. Motion to adjourn, 10:06.
Motion been made and seconded. There is no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion's carried. We are adjourned.
You want me to-
Thank you.